The woman emptying trash on the 47th floor had exactly 6 minutes to stop $500 million from disappearing. The rain slammed against the glass walls of Carter Dynamics Tower, turning Manhattan into a blur of silver lights and dark shadows below. At 2:07 a.m., the building was supposed to be empty except for security and the overnight cleaning crew, but Claire Bennett knew better than anyone that rich people never truly stopped working. Not even at 2 in the morning. The soft squeak of her cleaning cart echoed through the executive hallway as she pushed it past rows of dark offices lined with awards, marble sculptures, and framed magazine covers with Ethan Carter's face printed across them. America's youngest billionaire CEO. 40 under 40. Wall Street genius. Claire barely looked at the photos anymore. After 18 months cleaning the same floors every night, the expensive walls and glowing city views had lost their magic. To her, the tower smelled less like success and more like burnt coffee, printer ink, and people too busy to notice anyone beneath them. She adjusted the sleeves of her oversized gray hoodie under her janitor jacket and glanced toward the security camera near the elevator. Still blinking red. Still working. Good. Her secret was safe for another night. Nobody knew Claire had been sleeping inside the building for the past 3 weeks. Not security. Not management. Not the women she cleaned bathrooms beside at midnight. Every night after her shift ended, she quietly slipped into an unused supply room behind conference room 47 and curled up beneath a desk with a folded blanket and an old backpack as her pillow. It was temporary. At least that was what she kept telling herself. Temporary until she saved enough for another apartment. Temporary until life stopped hitting her faster than she could recover. She pushed the cart into the executive wing and froze. Light spilled from beneath the glass doors of the main boardroom. Claire frowned. Nobody booked meetings this late. She slowly approached, her sneakers silent against the polished floor. Voices drifted through the crack in the door. Transfer it before market opens. A man's voice. Low. Nervous. Another voice answered sharply. It has to clear before 6 a.m., or the deal dies. Claire should have walked away. A smart person would have kept pushing the mop bucket and minded their business. But Claire had never been very good at ignoring problems. She carefully leaned closer and glanced through the narrow gap in the door. Her breath caught. One of the executive monitors displayed rows of flashing banking transfers, an encrypted code racing down the screen. At the top corner sat a number so large her brain struggled to process it. $500 million. Her stomach tightened instantly. She knew enough about systems to understand this wasn't normal. Not even for a company like Carter Dynamics. Especially not hidden in the middle of the night. Suddenly footsteps echoed from inside the room. Claire jerked backward, nearly knocking over her cart. The lights inside shut off instantly. Silence. Then the boardroom doors opened. A tall man stepped into the hallway shadows wearing dark slacks and a black wool coat, his face partly hidden beneath the low executive lighting. Claire quickly grabbed a spray bottle and pretended to wipe fingerprints from the glass wall beside her. The stranger studied her for a second too long. You work nights? He asked quietly. His voice was calm. Smooth. Definitely not security. Claire kept her eyes down. Cleaning crew. You didn't see anything in there tonight. Not a question. A warning. Claire forced a tired smile. Trust me. Nobody notices the cleaning lady. Something flickered across the man's expression at that sentence. Guilt maybe. Or curiosity. Before he could respond, another elevator dinged farther down the hallway. The stranger glanced toward it, distracted for half a second, then walked past Claire without another word. She watched him disappear around the corner. Weird. Very weird. Claire looked back at the dark boardroom. Every instinct told her to leave it alone. But another voice inside her whispered something she had spent years trying to silence. The version of herself that once stayed awake all night studying cybersecurity textbooks while dreaming about MIT classrooms and Silicon Valley internships. The version that existed before hospital bills swallowed her future whole, before her mother got sick, before debt collectors and eviction notices replaced college acceptance letters. Claire swallowed hard. Then she quietly stepped into the boardroom. The massive screens were still glowing faintly. Whoever left had logged out too quickly because one terminal remained open. Claire sat carefully in the leather chair, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The transfer window was still active. Routing numbers. Offshore accounts. Encrypted relay channels. Her heartbeat sped up. "Oh my God," she whispered. This wasn't a normal transfer. Someone was draining company funds through layered shell accounts designed to disappear before morning trading opened. And whoever built the script knew exactly what they were doing. Claire's eyes narrowed. She recognized parts of the code architecture instantly. Advanced, clean, professional, but rushed. One tiny mistake sat buried inside the relay timing. Tiny enough most people would never notice. Claire noticed. Her fingers moved before her fear could stop them. She opened another terminal and started tracing the command path. 30 seconds later, her blood ran cold. The money was already moving. Live. She looked at the timer in the corner of the screen. 5 hours until market open. If the transfer completed before then, Carter Dynamics would wake up to financial chaos. Stock collapse. Federal investigations. Headlines everywhere. Claire stared at the glowing numbers racing across the monitor while rain battered the windows behind her. This was insane. She should call security. Except if executives were involved, security might already be compromised. She rubbed her shaking hands against her jeans and glanced toward the hallway. Empty. Quiet. The tower felt different now. Colder somehow. Like the building itself knew something terrible was happening inside its walls. Claire exhaled slowly and reached into her backpack beneath the cleaning cart. Hidden between folded clothes and instant ramen cups sat an old silver laptop covered in faded college stickers. MIT Summer Cyber Camp. Women in Tech Boston Coding League. Relics from another lifetime. She opened it carefully. The screen flickered twice before turning on. "Come on," she whispered. "Don't die on me tonight." Her laptop hummed awake while lightning flashed outside the windows. Claire plugged into the company network through the open terminal and began typing rapidly, her tired eyes sharpening with focus for the first time all night. Somewhere deep in the building, an alarm quietly clicked online. And 2 floors below her, Billionaire CEO Ethan Carter stepped out of a private elevator, staring at the security alert now glowing red across his phone screen. The moment Ethan Carter saw the security alert flash across his phone, he knew someone inside his company had just made a fatal mistake. The private elevator climbed silently toward the executive floors while rainwater dripped from the shoulders of his black coat onto the polished marble floor. His jaw tightened as another notification appeared on the screen. Unauthorized server access detected. Executive Boardroom 47. Ethan rarely came back to headquarters after midnight anymore. At 38 years old, exhaustion had started settling behind his eyes no matter how expensive the penthouse or how many zeros sat in his bank account. 3 continents depended on Carter Dynamics. Thousands of employees. Billion-dollar contracts. Investors who treated him like a machine instead of a man. But tonight something felt wrong long before the alerts arrived. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the fact Victoria Hale had suddenly pushed to finalize a suspicious overseas acquisition before morning trading opened. Or maybe it was because Ethan had spent too many years around powerful people to ignore the smell of betrayal. The elevator doors slid open onto the executive level with a soft metallic whisper. Empty hallway. Dim lights. The faint smell of lemon cleaner lingering in the air. Ethan stepped forward slowly, his expensive shoes nearly silent against the dark floor. Then he saw it. A cleaning cart abandoned outside the boardroom. One yellow caution sign tilted sideways. And through the partially open glass doors, a glow from computer monitors flickered across the dark room. Ethan's hand tightened around his phone. Someone was still inside. He moved quietly toward the doorway and stopped cold. A young woman sat in one of the executive chairs, typing furiously across 2 keyboards while lines of code streamed down the massive wall screens around her. She wore a faded gray hoodie beneath her cleaning uniform. Blonde hair tied into a loose, messy knot. Thin fingers moving faster than most senior engineers he employed. For a second, Ethan genuinely thought he was hallucinating. The cleaning lady from the hallway. "What are you doing?" he asked sharply. Claire jumped so hard, she nearly knocked her laptop off the desk. Her terrified blue eyes snapped toward him instantly. "Do not touch anything," she said breathlessly. Ethan blinked. Nobody spoke to him that way inside his own company. "Excuse me." Claire pointed at the screen with shaking fingers. "Somebody is moving $500 million through layered offshore accounts. If this relay completes before market open, your company is dead." Ethan stared at her, then at the monitors, then back at her again. Most people would not even understand what they were looking at. Yet somehow this exhausted cleaning lady not only recognized the breach, but was already inside the system trying to stop it. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. "Right now? The only person trying to save your servers." Another warning alarm flashed across the monitor. Red numbers. Transfer sequence accelerating. Claire cursed under her breath and shoved her old laptop toward Ethan. "Hold this steady." Ethan obeyed before realizing how insane that was. He stood beside her while she connected another cable into the network terminal. The city lights reflected against the glass walls around them like scattered stars. Rain hammered harder outside. Claire's hands trembled slightly as she typed. Ethan noticed immediately. Not fear exactly. Exhaustion. She looked like someone surviving on caffeine and determination alone. "How do you even know how to do this?" Ethan asked. "Long story. I have 6 hours before market opens." Claire glanced at the timer. "No. You have 6 minutes before the next relay pushes the money beyond trace recovery." Ethan felt the air leave his lungs. 6 minutes. $500 million. Gone. Claire suddenly opened another command line and froze. "Oh no. What?" They embedded a mirror script. Meaning whoever built this expected interference. She looked up at him for the first time since he entered the room. "If I block the transfer wrong, the system wipes every financial backup your company has." Ethan stared at her silently. She could destroy Carter Dynamics by accident trying to save it. Yet something about her expression stopped him from panicking. Claire did not look greedy or reckless. She looked terrified of failing. There was a difference. "Can you stop it?" he asked finally. Claire swallowed hard. "I think so. Think so." Ethan almost laughed at the absurdity of his situation. One of the richest companies in America now depended entirely on a woman making minimum wage while cleaning executive floors at 2 in the morning. Another alarm flashed red. For minutes and 32 seconds. Claire inhaled sharply and resumed typing faster. Ethan watched her carefully now. The precision of her movements. The way her eyes tracked patterns across multiple screens simultaneously. She was not improvising. She knew exactly what she was doing. "You are not really a cleaning lady," he said quietly. Claire gave a hollow smile without looking up. "Life does not always care what you used to be." The words hit harder than Ethan expected. For some reason he could not explain, he suddenly wanted to know everything about her. Before he could respond, another terminal opened automatically across the wall monitor. "Incoming authorization request approved by V.H." Ethan's expression darkened instantly. V.H. Victoria Hale. His chief financial officer. One of the few people he trusted completely. Claire noticed his face change. "You know who that is?" Ethan stayed silent too long. Claire slowly leaned back from the keyboard. "Oh my God." Another countdown appeared on screen. 3 minutes. Claire ran both hands through her hair and stood abruptly. "Listen to me carefully. If somebody inside your executive team approved this transfer, then your internal security cannot be trusted either." Ethan's gaze sharpened. "Smart. Very smart. You figured that out fast." "I had to." She looked toward the hallway nervously. "Because if they realize I found this," she stopped herself. Ethan finished the sentence internally. "Then she becomes a problem." Claire stepped back toward her laptop and flexed her trembling fingers once. "Okay, here is what is going to happen. I am going to force a temporary freeze through the relay nodes. Can they stop you?" "Probably." "What happens if they do?" Claire gave a small, exhausted laugh. "Then I hope your company has a really good bankruptcy lawyer." Ethan almost smiled despite the tension crushing the room. Almost. Another flash of lightning illuminated the windows behind them. Claire suddenly paused mid-typing and squeezed her eyes shut for half a second. Ethan noticed her breathing becoming uneven. Panic. Not dramatic. Quiet. Controlled. Like someone fighting memories while trying to stay functional. "Hey," Ethan said softly before he could stop himself. Claire looked up again. "You can do this." For a moment, neither of them moved. Something shifted in the silence between them. Strange. Unexpected. Human. Claire nodded once and returned to the keyboard. 2 minutes and 11 seconds. Ethan's phone vibrated violently in his hand. Incoming call, Victoria Hale. His eyes narrowed. Claire saw the screen instantly. "Do not answer that." Ethan declined the call without hesitation. Claire looked genuinely surprised by that choice. "You trust me over your CFO?" Ethan stared at the red numbers racing across the monitor. "At the moment." He looked directly at her. "You are the only honest person I have found tonight." Claire froze for the briefest second before turning back toward the screens. And somewhere beneath the screaming alarms, pouring rain, and glowing Manhattan skyline, something dangerous quietly began between them. 1 minute and 48 seconds before the next transfer relay activated, Claire Bennett realized she was about to trust her life to a man she had known for less than 10 minutes. Rain streaked down the towering glass walls of the executive boardroom, while lines of code reflected across Ethan Carter's face in cold blue light. The alarms had stopped sounding out loud now. Somehow that felt worse. Quieter. More dangerous. Claire's fingers flew across the keyboard as she rerouted the transfer path through temporary server loops designed to slow the outgoing transactions. Sweat slid down the side of her neck despite the freezing air conditioning inside the room. "Tell me something," Ethan said suddenly beside her. Claire did not look away from the screen. "Now, you recognize this system architecture in under 30 seconds." His voice stayed calm, controlled. "Most people in my cybersecurity division could not do that." Claire forced herself not to react. "Maybe you should hire better people." Ethan almost smiled. Almost. Another warning flashed red across the monitor. Intrusion detected. Unauthorized rerouting attempt identified. Claire's stomach dropped instantly. No, no, no. What happened?" Ethan asked. "They noticed me." The transfer speed accelerated again. Whoever built the original system had now manually overridden her block. Claire stared at the new command signatures appearing across the screen and felt genuine fear creep into her chest for the first time that night. This was no amateur hacker sitting in a basement overseas. This was someone inside the company infrastructure with executive-level access. Someone watching them in real time. Ethan saw the change in her expression immediately. "Can you still stop it?" Claire hesitated half a second too long. "Claire." It startled her hearing her name in his voice. Soft. Direct. She had not even realized she told him earlier. "I can slow it," she admitted quietly. "But stopping it completely," she swallowed hard. "I need access beyond my clearance level." Ethan stepped closer. "What do you need?" "Root authorization." Ethan reached into his coat pocket and removed a black titanium keycard. Claire's eyes widened instantly. Executive Omega clearance. The highest level inside Carter Dynamics. Only 3 people in the company possessed one. Ethan placed it carefully beside her laptop. "Use mine." Claire stared at him in disbelief. "You really trust me that much?" Ethan's expression darkened slightly. "I trust the person trying to save my company at 2:30 in the morning more than the people trying to rob it." Something about the sentence hit Claire harder than it should have. She quickly looked back at the screen before he noticed. Her chest felt tight suddenly. Dangerous. Human. She hated that feeling. Especially around powerful men. Especially around billionaires. Claire inserted the keycard into the terminal reader and instantly gained deeper system access. New files exploded across the screens around them. Transaction records. Hidden approvals. Encrypted communications. Ethan's face hardened as he scanned the names appearing on the monitors. "Victoria," he whispered. Claire looked toward him carefully. The betrayal in his eyes was almost worse than anger. "You loved her?" she asked before thinking. Ethan blinked once, surprised by the question. "Not like that." His voice lowered. "But she helped build this company with me." Claire understood immediately. Sometimes betrayal hurt more when it came from people who knew your struggles before the world knew your success. Another timer appeared. 58 seconds. Claire's pulse slammed harder. "Okay," she said quickly, forcing focus back into her voice. "Once I trigger this lockdown, every executive system inside the building will freeze." Ethan nodded. "Do it. There is one problem." "What?" Claire turned slowly toward him. "Whoever approved the transfer is going to know you stopped them." Silence settled heavily between them for half a second. Ethan's expression never changed. "Good." Claire stared at him. Most wealthy men she had met spent their lives avoiding conflict behind lawyers and assistants and public relations teams. But Ethan Carter looked almost relieved to finally know where the threat was coming from. "You really are crazy," Claire muttered. Ethan gave the faintest smile. "Probably." Then suddenly the lights flickered. Claire froze. Every monitor inside the boardroom flashed black for one terrifying second before emergency backup systems kicked in. "They are trying to cut power remotely," she whispered. Ethan immediately pulled out his phone. No signal. "The internal network is isolated now." Claire's breathing quickened. If they sever backup systems before I finish. Ethan stepped beside her again. Close enough now that she could smell rain and expensive cologne lingering faintly against his coat. Weirdly comforting. How long? He asked. Claire stared at the code. 30 seconds. Can you do it? Her fingers trembled once above the keyboard. Then she remembered another hospital bill sitting unopened in her backpack downstairs. Another voicemail from a debt collector. Another year of cleaning floors while pretending she no longer cared about the future she lost. Claire inhaled slowly. Yes. Her hands moved instantly. Code streamed rapidly across every monitor surrounding them. Firewall override. Transaction freeze. Emergency authentication. Ethan watched in stunned silence now. Not because she was fast. Because she was brilliant. Raw. Unpolished. Brilliant. Somewhere along the way, the world had taken someone extraordinary and buried her beneath a cleaning cart. 5 seconds, Claire whispered. Red warning lights exploded across the wall screens. Unauthorized lockdown in progress. Then suddenly everything stopped. Silence. The transaction timer vanished. Claire stared at the frozen numbers on the monitor, barely breathing. Then a new message slowly appeared across the center screen. Transfer failed. Ethan looked at the monitor. Then at Claire. Then back at the monitor again. $500 million saved. Claire leaned backward in the chair like her body had suddenly forgotten how to stay upright. A shaky laugh escaped her lips before she covered her face with both hands. Oh my God! Ethan realized then just how exhausted she truly was. Not physically. Soul-deep exhaustion. The kind people carried after losing too many battles alone. He noticed the faint dark circles beneath her eyes. The worn edges of her hoodie sleeves. The tiny scar near her wrist. Details nobody probably noticed because nobody looked at cleaning staff long enough to care. But Ethan noticed. And somehow he could not stop noticing. Claire finally lowered her hands slowly. You should call the FBI, she said quietly. And you're bored. Ethan kept staring at her. I will. And maybe your lawyers too. Another tiny smile almost appeared on his face. Probably. Claire suddenly became aware of how close they were standing now. The room felt smaller somehow. Warmer despite the cold lighting. Dangerous in an entirely different way. She stepped backward quickly. You should also know. Ethan waited. Claire hesitated. Whoever did this probably has access to employee records too. Ethan frowned slightly. Why does that matter? Claire looked away for the first time all night. Because if they start digging into everyone who was here tonight, her voice softened. They're going to find out I have been illegally sleeping inside your building. Silence. Ethan blinked once. What? Claire crossed her arms defensively immediately. Look, before you say anything, I was not stealing from you. I lost my apartment 3 weeks ago after my mother's medical debt transferred to collections, and, Claire. She stopped talking instantly. Ethan's voice changed again. Softer now. Careful. You have been living here? Claire hated how embarrassed she suddenly felt. Only temporary. Ethan looked around the enormous luxury boardroom filled with imported leather chairs and $20 million contracts displayed on glowing screens. Then he looked back at the exhausted woman standing beside the cleaning cart. Something twisted painfully inside his chest. Nobody noticed? Claire laughed quietly without humor. Rich people rarely notice the woman cleaning up after them. Ethan had spent his entire adult life surrounded by executives, investors, celebrities, politicians, models, and reporters. Yet somehow the loneliest person he had ever met was standing barefoot inside his billion-dollar boardroom, holding a mop handle in one hand and an old laptop in the other. Before Ethan could respond, security alarms suddenly exploded through the hallway outside. Claire's eyes widened instantly. Someone is coming. Then both of them turned toward the glass doors as footsteps rapidly approached the executive floor. The footsteps outside the boardroom grew louder with terrifying speed, sharp against the polished executive hallway like a countdown Claire Bennett could physically feel inside her chest. Her fingers instinctively closed around the edge of her old laptop, while Ethan Carter's expression hardened instantly beside her. Security. More than one person. Claire's pulse slammed harder. They cannot find me in here, she whispered. Ethan glanced toward the glass doors as shadows moved beneath the hallway lights outside. Too late for that. The boardroom doors suddenly swung open. 3 security officers entered first, followed by Ryan Cole from Information Technology, his tablet glowing in his hand. Claire recognized him immediately. Everyone inside Carter Dynamics did. Ryan ran the company's cybersecurity division. Tall, polished, always calm. Tonight, he looked furious. There, Ryan snapped, pointing directly at Claire. That is the unauthorized user. Claire felt the blood drain from her face. One of the guards immediately stepped toward her. Miss, step away from the terminal. Ethan moved before Claire could speak. Nobody touches her. The room froze instantly. Ryan's eyes widened slightly. Mr. Carter? Claire turned toward Ethan in complete shock. Mr. Carter. Her brain struggled to process the words. Then everything suddenly connected at once. The private elevator. The Omega keycard. The magazine covers. The impossible authority in his voice. Oh no. Oh God. Claire stared at the man beside her while the room spun slightly around her. Ethan Carter. Billionaire CEO of Carter Dynamics. The man whose face hung framed across half the building she cleaned every night. And she had ordered him to hold her laptop steady like an intern 20 minutes ago. Ryan recovered quickly. Sir, we detected a severe network breach originating from this boardroom. His eyes shifted coldly toward Claire. This woman accessed executive financial systems without authorization. Claire opened her mouth instantly. I was trying to stop the transfer. Enough, Ryan cut her off sharply. You are lucky security found you before more damage was done. Ethan's jaw tightened visibly. Claire noticed it immediately. Dangerous silence filled the room for half a second. Damage? Ethan repeated quietly. Ryan nodded quickly, unaware of the storm building beneath Ethan's calm expression. The transfer attempt appears connected to a sophisticated attack on our offshore accounts. We are still assessing how much she managed to compromise. Claire stared at him in disbelief. He was framing her already. Fast, clean, professional. Ryan stepped toward the monitors and immediately froze when he saw the transaction logs still displayed across the screens. Claire watched panic flicker behind his eyes for less than a second before he masked it again. Too late. Ethan noticed too. Interesting, Ethan said softly. Ryan turned back carefully. Sir. Ethan stepped closer to the monitors. You identified her as the attacker very quickly. Ryan forced a tight smile. The intrusion alarms pointed directly to this terminal. Claire's stomach twisted. Smart. Ryan had probably already manipulated the internal logs before arriving upstairs. Ethan folded his arms slowly. Then perhaps you can explain why the transaction authorization traces back to an executive credential. Ryan hesitated. Tiny, but enough. Claire saw Ethan notice every detail, every blink, every shift in breathing. Billionaires did not survive by missing lies. Ryan recovered quickly. That is likely part of the breach architecture. Whoever built this wanted to mimic internal access. Claire almost laughed from the sheer arrogance of it. The man was lying directly to Ethan Carter's face while standing inside the crime scene. One of the security officers stepped closer to Claire again. Miss, I need you to surrender the laptop. Claire instinctively pulled it against her chest. No, Claire, Ethan said quietly. She looked at him instantly. Give it to me. His voice stayed calm. Certain. Claire hesitated only 1 second before handing him the old silver laptop. Ethan took it carefully, noticing the faded stickers again across the cracked surface. MIT Summer Cyber Camp. Women in Engineering. National Cyber League finalist. Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly. Claire saw him reading them. Saw the realization slowly forming behind his gaze. Ryan noticed too. Interesting hobby stickers, Ryan said casually. For a janitor. Claire hated the embarrassment that immediately burned through her chest. She crossed her arms tightly. Not everyone gets to finish the life they planned. Ethan looked at her again after that sentence. Really looked at her. And for some reason Claire suddenly wished she had not said it out loud. Ryan cleared his throat carefully. Sir, we should isolate her immediately and begin a formal investigation before this escalates further. Ethan stayed silent. Claire could almost feel the calculation happening inside his head. CEO versus human being. Public scandal versus truth. The board versus instinct. Ryan took Ethan's silence as agreement and nodded toward the guards. Escort her downstairs. One of the guards gently reached for Claire's arm. She flinched automatically. Not because of force. Because humiliation always arrived first. Claire knew this feeling. People staring at you like you already failed before you even spoke. Like your side of the story no longer mattered because your uniform decided your worth. Wait, Ethan said suddenly. Everyone stopped. Ethan stepped closer to Claire slowly. close enough now that only she could hear his next words. Did you save the proof? Claire swallowed hard, then gave the smallest possible nod. Ethan's eyes softened almost invisibly. Good. Ryan interrupted quickly. Sir, with respect, this woman illegally entered executive systems and admitted to living inside company property. Claire felt humiliation crash into her all over again. The room became painfully quiet. One security officer even looked uncomfortable now. Ethan turned slowly toward Ryan. And yet she also prevented $500 million from leaving this company tonight. Ryan's face remained carefully neutral. That has not been verified. Ethan stared at him for a long moment. It will be. Claire's heartbeat would not slow down. Nothing about this situation made sense anymore. Ethan Carter should have protected the company first. Protected executives first. Protected himself first. Men like him always did. But instead he kept stepping between her and everyone else in the room. Ryan glanced toward the frozen transaction screens again. Nervous now. Claire noticed. Ethan noticed too. Lock down the executive network. Ethan ordered calmly. Nobody accesses financial servers until I authorize it personally. Ryan hesitated. Sir, that may disrupt morning trading. Ethan's eyes turned cold enough to freeze the room instantly. Do it anyway. Silence. Then Ryan nodded stiffly. Yes, sir. Ethan handed Claire's laptop back to her carefully. Their fingers brushed briefly. Warm. Human. Unexpected. You are coming with me, he said quietly. Claire blinked. What? You said someone inside the company orchestrated this. Ethan glanced toward the screens again. Which means the safest place for you right now is beside the only person in this building they cannot fire. Claire stared at him speechlessly. Ryan looked horrified. Sir, with respect, this is highly inappropriate. Ethan finally turned fully toward him. No, he said calmly. What is inappropriate is somebody attempting to rob my company while framing the woman who stopped it. The room went completely silent. Claire could barely breathe now. Ethan looked back at her again, softer this time. Claire. She swallowed hard. Yes. Do not be afraid of them. Something inside her chest cracked slightly at those words. Because nobody had said that to her in a very long time. Ethan turned toward the boardroom exit and motioned for her to follow. Claire hesitated only 1 second before stepping beside him. Behind them, Ryan Cole watched silently while the executive screens continued glowing red across the dark boardroom walls. And somewhere beneath his calm expression, panic had finally started to grow. Claire Bennett had cleaned the executive elevators hundreds of times before, but this was the first time she stood inside one beside the billionaire whose name was engraved across the building walls. The private elevator moved silently downward through Carter Dynamics Tower, while soft jazz played from hidden speakers above them. Claire hated how aware she suddenly felt of everything. Her worn sneakers against polished black marble. The faint smell of cleaning chemicals still clinging to her sleeves. The fact she had slept in a storage room 30 floors below the man now standing beside her in a perfectly tailored coat worth more than her entire savings account. Ethan Carter remained calm on the outside, but Claire could feel tension radiating from him anyway. He stared straight ahead while rainwater slowly dried against his dark hair and collar. Billionaire. CEO. Public genius. Yet somehow he looked more exhausted than anyone she had ever met. You are very quiet now, Ethan said suddenly. Claire let out a nervous laugh. I just found out I accidentally ordered around the owner of the company. Ethan glanced sideways at her. You also saved the owner of the company $500 million. Claire looked down immediately. Compliments always made her uncomfortable, especially sincere ones. Silence settled again while the elevator descended deeper beneath the tower. Then Ethan spoke quietly. You really lived here for 3 weeks? Claire crossed her arms tighter instinctively. I did not exactly have better options. Ethan frowned slightly. No family. No one left. The words came out flatter than she intended. Ethan studied her carefully. There was no self-pity in her voice. Just tired acceptance. That somehow hurt worse to hear. The elevator finally opened onto a restricted underground level Claire had never seen before. Dim lights reflected across dark steel walls and private server rooms lined behind thick glass security barriers. Ethan stepped out first. Come on. Claire followed carefully, clutching her old laptop against her chest while anxiety twisted harder in her stomach. Where are we? Level B12, Ethan answered. Only senior infrastructure staff have access. Claire looked around slowly. Massive servers hummed softly behind reinforced glass rooms, while red security lights blinked overhead. The entire floor felt colder than the rest of the building. More secretive, more dangerous. Ethan led her into a private operations room at the end of the hallway. Large monitors covered one wall displaying real-time financial systems, market projections, and global network activity. Claire immediately spotted the frozen transfer logs still highlighted red on the center screen. Ethan closed the door behind them and finally loosened his coat slightly. No cameras in here except internal archive recording. Claire's eyes narrowed instantly. You have a secret room beneath your own company? Ethan almost smiled. Every billionaire has trust issues. Claire unexpectedly laughed softly at that. The sound surprised both of them. It was small, brief, human. Ethan realized then he liked hearing her laugh far more than he should. Claire walked toward the screens slowly while studying the ongoing server activity. The transfer attempt stopped after the lockdown, she murmured. But whoever built this system is still inside your infrastructure. Ethan leaned against the desk beside her. Can you trace them? Claire hesitated. Maybe. Ethan noticed the hesitation immediately. But Claire stared at the monitors. If I start digging deeper, whoever did this will realize the attack failed because of me specifically. Ethan's jaw tightened. Meaning you become a target. Claire nodded once. Ethan looked at her for a long moment before speaking again. Then we do it together. Claire blinked. You barely know me. I know enough. His answer came too quickly, too honestly. Claire looked away first. Dangerous. Again. She hated how easily this man unsettled her. Ethan moved toward a small kitchen area along the wall and poured 2 cups of coffee from a stainless steel machine. He handed one carefully toward her. Claire hesitated before taking it. Warm. Real cream. Expensive coffee probably imported from somewhere she could not pronounce. She had spent the last month surviving on gas station coffee and instant noodles. The contrast nearly made her emotional. Ethan noticed the way her fingers wrapped around the cup, like she was holding warmth itself. When was the last time you slept properly? He asked quietly. Claire looked down into the coffee. I do not know. Ethan leaned against the counter, watching her carefully now. Tell me something honestly. Claire glanced up warily. What? Why were you cleaning floors if you could do this? He gestured toward the screens. Claire's chest tightened immediately. There it was. The question she hated most. The one that reminded her who she almost became before life collapsed. She stared at the steam rising from the coffee cup while rain tapped softly against the underground windows high above the ceiling level. My mother got sick during my second year at MIT, she said quietly. Ethan's expression changed instantly. MIT. He knew it. Cancer? He asked gently. Claire nodded once. The treatments lasted almost 3 years. She forced a hollow smile. Turns out hospitals care a lot about money. Ethan stayed silent. Claire continued staring at the coffee while old memories dragged slowly through her voice. I tried doing both at first. Classes during the day, hospital at night, freelance coding online. She laughed softly without humor. Eventually something breaks. Ethan watched her closely, not once interrupting, not once looking at his phone. Most powerful people listened only long enough to speak again. Ethan listened like every word mattered. Claire noticed. That made it harder somehow. After she died, I was already drowning in debt, Claire continued. I lost my apartment 6 months later. Ethan's chest tightened painfully. And nobody helped you? Claire looked at him then. Really looked at him. Mr. Carter, people barely notice women like me exist. The words landed heavily inside the room. Ethan had spent years surrounded by executives arguing over percentages, while women like Claire quietly emptied their trash cans at midnight. Invisible. Necessary. Forgotten. Suddenly the entire building around him felt uglier than before. Claire quickly changed the subject before the silence became too personal. Anyway, enough depressing life stories. She set down the coffee and reopened her laptop. Let us catch your criminal executives before sunrise. Ethan should have smiled. Instead, he kept staring at her. The world had somehow convinced this woman she was ordinary while she sat inside a hidden operations room beneath Manhattan capable of outthinking half his cybersecurity division. Claire plugged into the secure server network again and began tracing the mirrored transfer architecture. Ethan moved beside her automatically now, closer than before, familiar already in a strange, unsettling way. There, Claire whispered suddenly. She pointed toward one encrypted authorization chain buried beneath the financial logs. Ethan leaned closer to the screen. What am I looking at? A ghost authorization path. Claire zoomed into the data trail rapidly. Whoever approved the transfer routed it through a hidden executive relay tied to internal legal permissions. Ethan's face darkened instantly. Only board-level executives can access those. Claire nodded slowly. Which means your problem is much bigger than one corrupted employee. Ethan stared at the screen silently. His company, his board, his closest advisors. Someone inside that circle had tried to destroy everything tonight. Claire noticed his expression and quietly softened her voice. You trusted them. Ethan gave a tired smile that never reached his eyes. I built this company with some of them. Claire suddenly understood something important. Ethan Carter was not cold because he lacked emotion. He was cold because powerful people had spent years weaponizing trust around him. Before she could say anything else, one of the monitors suddenly flashed bright red again. Both of them froze instantly. New alert detected. External access request initiated from executive terminal. Claire's pulse jumped. Someone is trying to override the lockdown remotely. Ethan's expression sharpened immediately. Can you stop it? Claire stared at the incoming credentials appearing across the screen. Then her eyes widened slowly. No way. What? Claire looked up at Ethan carefully. The access request is coming directly from your executive office upstairs. Silence filled the room instantly. Ethan had not been in his office all night, which meant only one thing. Someone else was inside it right now. Claire Bennett stared at the glowing red alert on the monitor, while every instinct inside her screamed the same thing at once. Run. Somebody was inside Ethan Carter's private executive office at nearly 3 a.m. trying to override the system lockdown they had just triggered. The underground operations room suddenly felt colder than before. Smaller somehow. Ethan stepped closer to the screens, his expression sharpening into something dangerously calm. Can you trace the exact terminal? Claire nodded quickly and began typing again. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with renewed focus, while lines of encrypted server data streamed rapidly down the monitors. Executive Office Terminal 3, she whispered. Direct biometric access. Ethan's jaw tightened. That terminal only activates with fingerprint authorization. Claire looked up slowly. Meaning whoever is upstairs either has your clearance, she hesitated, or access to your office physically. Ethan did not answer immediately. That silence alone told her enough. Someone inside his inner circle had crossed a line that could not be undone anymore. Claire watched him carefully now. The billionaire confidence was still there, the polished control, but beneath it she could finally see something else. Hurt. Deep hurt. You know who it is, do not you? She asked softly. Ethan stared at the monitor another second before speaking. I know who it could be. Claire leaned back slowly. That sounds worse. Ethan let out a quiet breath through his nose. Victoria Hale has had unrestricted access to my office for almost 8 years. 8 years. Claire swallowed hard. Trust built over years could destroy people far more deeply than betrayal from strangers. Ethan suddenly reached for his phone and dialed a number immediately. The call rang twice before connecting. Marcus, Ethan said calmly. Claire recognized the name instantly. Marcus Reed, Senior Overnight Security Supervisor. One of the few guards who occasionally smiled at cleaning staff instead of ignoring them. Ethan's voice lowered. I need eyes on my executive floor now. Quietly. A pause. Ethan's expression darkened further. Do not approach anyone yet. Just tell me who is there. Claire watched him carefully while anxiety tightened inside her chest again. Somewhere above them, inside the giant sleeping tower, someone was actively trying to regain access to the financial systems. And if that person realized Ethan already knew the truth, the monitors suddenly flashed again. Override attempt failed. Another attempt immediately followed. Claire's eyes widened. They are getting desperate. Ethan ended the call and stepped closer beside her. Their shoulders nearly touched now. Neither moved away. How long before they break through? He asked quietly. Claire studied the incoming commands carefully. Maybe 20 minutes. Ethan frowned. That little. Claire nodded grimly. Whoever built this architecture knows your internal systems intimately. She glanced toward him carefully. Honestly, this level of access should terrify you. Ethan gave a humorless smile. It does. For a moment, silence settled between them again, except for the constant low hum of servers surrounding the room. Claire became painfully aware of how late it was, how tired she felt, How surreal this entire night had become. 12 hours ago, she had been worried about finding enough quarters for laundry downstairs at the homeless shelter. Now she sat underground beside one of the richest men in America, trying to stop a corporate betrayal worth $500 million. Life was insane sometimes. Ethan suddenly looked toward the old backpack sitting near her chair. Worn fabric, frayed straps, one zipper held together with a paperclip. "That is everything you own?" he asked quietly. Claire instinctively crossed her arms. "Most of it." Ethan's chest tightened again, unexpectedly. He had spent more money redesigning a conference room last year than Claire probably possessed in her entire life. Yet somehow she carried herself with more dignity than half the executives sitting on his board. "Why did you never ask anyone here for help?" he asked. Claire laughed softly, without humor, while staring at the screens. "Because people do not exactly hand opportunities to women pushing mop buckets at 2 in the morning." Ethan wanted to argue with her, wanted to say she was wrong, but deep down he knew she was not. Claire had probably walked through his building invisible every single night, while executives debated innovation and talent acquisition inside glass offices above her head. The irony made him sick. Marcus called back suddenly. Ethan answered instantly. "Talk to me." Marcus's voice crackled through the phone speaker. "Your office lights are on, sir." Ethan's expression hardened. "Who is inside?" A pause. Then Marcus answered carefully. "Miss Hale." Claire looked toward Ethan immediately. There it was. Confirmation. Real. Heavy. Irreversible. Ethan closed his eyes briefly, like the answer physically exhausted him. "Is she alone?" "No, sir. Ryan Cole entered the executive floor 6 minutes ago." Claire's stomach dropped instantly. "Ryan. Of course." Ethan opened his eyes again slowly. "Colder now. Sharper. Keep the floor isolated. Nobody leaves." "Yes, sir." Ethan ended the call. Claire stared at the monitors while her pulse accelerated again. "Ryan handled your cybersecurity division." Ethan nodded once. "And Victoria controlled financial approvals." Claire let out a quiet breath. "They built the perfect system together." Ethan's voice lowered dangerously, and thought nobody would notice. Claire looked at him carefully. "Most people would not have." Ethan met her eyes then. "But you did." Something shifted again in the silence between them. Claire quickly looked back toward the screens before it became too personal. She hated how easily this man saw through her defenses already. Another alert flashed across the monitors. Claire froze instantly. "Wait." Ethan stepped closer. "What?" Claire zoomed rapidly into one of the encrypted server logs. Her face slowly drained of color. "Oh no." "Claire." She pointed toward the screen with trembling fingers. "They just accessed employee archives." Ethan's expression sharpened immediately. "Meaning?" Claire swallowed hard. "Meaning they are searching for me specifically now." The room suddenly felt suffocating. Claire's heartbeat pounded painfully inside her ears while files rapidly opened across the monitor. Cleaning schedules, payroll data, personnel reports, security footage. Somebody upstairs was digging through her life in real time. "Can they find you?" Ethan asked quietly. Claire gave a weak laugh. "Mr. Carter, I literally signed tax forms under my real name." Ethan stepped closer instantly. "Then we move you somewhere safe." Claire stared at him in disbelief. "You really think the billionaire CEO personally hiding a homeless cleaning lady is a good idea?" Ethan did not even hesitate. "Yes." Claire blinked at him speechlessly. Most rich men she had met spent their lives protecting appearances first. Ethan Carter kept protecting her instead. It made absolutely no sense, which somehow made it more dangerous. Claire quickly reopened another security layer and started deleting access trails connected to her personnel files. "I can slow them down," she whispered. "But eventually they are going to realize I was the one who stopped the transfer." Ethan leaned beside her while watching the monitors carefully. "Then we make sure they cannot silence you first." Silence settled heavily again. Claire suddenly became aware of how close he stood now. Warm, calm, steady, like somehow chaos bent itself around him instead of through him. She hated how comforting that felt. "Why are you helping me?" she asked quietly before she could stop herself. Ethan looked at her immediately. "Because you helped me first." Claire shook her head softly. "No, I mean really helping me." Ethan stared at her for a long moment before answering. "Because everyone else in this building looked past you." His voice lowered slightly. "And I am starting to think that was their biggest mistake." Claire's chest tightened painfully at the words. Before she could respond, every monitor inside the underground room suddenly flickered at once. Then the overhead lights dimmed sharply. Claire's eyes widened in alarm. That should not happen. Ethan immediately looked toward the servers behind the glass walls. Red warning lights were flashing across the entire underground level now. Claire's fingers flew across the keyboard again. Then she froze completely. They are trying to shut down the backup generators. Ethan's expression turned ice cold. Can they? Claire looked up slowly. Fear finally visible in her eyes now. If the power dies down here, she swallowed hard. Every piece of evidence we have disappears with it. The lights inside level B12 dimmed again, lower this time, casting long shadows across the underground operations room, while emergency backup alarms echoed softly through the steel walls around them. Claire Bennett's fingers froze above the keyboard for half a second as fear tightened painfully inside her chest. Somebody upstairs was trying to erase every trace of what happened tonight, and they were getting closer. Ethan Carter stepped toward the server glass immediately, his expression colder than Claire had ever seen before. Red emergency lights reflected sharply across his face, while rows of backup systems flickered behind reinforced glass panels. How long before the generators fail? He asked. Claire forced herself to focus on the monitor again. If they override the backup grid manually? She swallowed hard. Maybe 10 minutes. Ethan's jaw tightened instantly. 10 minutes until the evidence disappeared. 10 minutes until the people responsible could rewrite the entire story. Claire typed rapidly across multiple windows, trying to duplicate the transfer logs onto external encrypted storage. I am making copies now, she whispered. But if power drops during transfer, Ethan looked at her carefully. Then what? Claire's voice lowered. Then none of this ever happened. Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. Ethan suddenly pulled off his expensive watch and placed it beside the keyboard. Claire blinked in confusion. What are you doing? The watch has an isolated satellite uplink. Claire stared at him. Your watch connects to satellites? Ethan gave the faintest shrug. Rich people are paranoid. Claire would have laughed if her heart was not pounding so hard. Ethan stepped beside her again while she connected the luxury watch to her old laptop using a cable from the server kit. The contrast nearly felt absurd. A billionaire's custom satellite technology plugged into a cracked 6-year-old computer covered in faded scholarship stickers. Somehow it worked perfectly. Uploading now, Claire whispered. The progress bar slowly crawled forward. 12%. 15. 20. Ethan kept watching the hallway monitors displayed on the wall screens. Empty for now, but not safe. Never safe anymore. Claire noticed his shoulders remained tense despite the calm expression on his face. You really trusted them, she said quietly while monitoring the upload. Ethan stayed silent a moment before answering. Victoria was employee number 3. Claire looked up. Ethan stared through the glass walls toward the glowing servers beyond them. When Carter Dynamics started, it was just me, Victoria, and 2 folding tables inside a tiny office in Queens. His voice softened slightly. She stayed when investors laughed at us. When payroll almost collapsed. When everyone else said we would fail. Claire listened carefully now. So this is personal. Ethan gave a tired smile, without humor. Everything becomes personal eventually. Claire understood that more than she wanted to admit. Losing dreams became personal. Losing family became personal. Even poverty eventually stopped feeling financial and started feeling emotional instead. 32%. The upload crawled painfully slowly across the monitor. Claire's fingers tapped nervously against the desk while the underground lights flickered again overhead. Then suddenly another warning appeared across the screen. Server room access requested. Level B12. Claire's stomach dropped instantly. They found us. Ethan looked at the request calmly. Too calmly. Can they enter? Claire scanned the security layers rapidly. Only with executive biometric clearance. Ethan's expression darkened slightly. Meaning Victoria? Claire nodded slowly. Somewhere upstairs inside the giant sleeping tower, the people who orchestrated the attack had realized Ethan Carter was no longer under control. Which meant the game changed now. Ethan suddenly picked up his phone again and called Marcus immediately. Tell me the truth. Ethan said the second Marcus answered. Did Victoria leave my office? Claire listened carefully while the rainstorm continued rumbling faintly far above the underground levels. Marcus answered quietly through the speaker. No, sir. Ethan's eyes narrowed. And Ryan? Still with her. Ethan looked toward Claire. They are staying put. Claire frowned slightly. That makes no sense. Ethan ended the call slowly. Unless they think they already won. The thought hit Claire instantly. Her pulse accelerated. The employee archives. Ethan turned toward her sharply. Claire's fingers flew back across the keyboard as realization crashed through her all at once. Oh my God, Claire. She opened a hidden access log and felt cold fear spread through her body immediately. They are not just searching my files. Ethan stepped closer. What are they doing? Claire looked up at him carefully. They are building a narrative. Silence filled the room instantly. Claire reopened multiple employee records rapidly. Security timestamps. Payroll access. Archived surveillance. Every system pointed toward one conclusion now. Claire Bennett illegally entered executive systems. Claire Bennett accessed financial transfers. Claire Bennett triggered server lockdowns. Claire Bennett lived inside company property without authorization. Ethan's expression turned ice cold. They are framing you publicly. Claire nodded slowly. And honestly, she gave a weak hollow laugh. It is going to look believable. Ethan stared at the screens silently while anger slowly darkened behind his eyes. Not explosive anger. Worse, controlled anger. The kind powerful men learned after years of being betrayed politely in expensive rooms. No, Ethan said quietly. Claire looked toward him. No what? His gaze remained fixed on the manipulated records. Nobody is sacrificing you for this. The certainty in his voice made Claire's chest tighten unexpectedly. She quickly looked back at the monitors again. Dangerous. She could not afford dangerous feelings around men like Ethan Carter. 46%. The upload crawled forward. Suddenly the lights dimmed sharply again. Then a loud mechanical sound echoed somewhere deep beyond the server walls. Claire froze instantly. That was not electrical. Ethan looked toward the hallway. What was it? Claire's face slowly lost color. Manual override. Another metallic sound echoed underground. Closer now. Ethan immediately stepped in front of the operations room door instinctively while Claire stared at the security monitor feeds. Empty hallways. Closed doors. Then suddenly one camera feed flickered. Claire leaned closer instantly. A shadow moved briefly across corridor C outside the server wing. Someone was down there. They should not even know this level exists, Claire whispered. Ethan's expression sharpened immediately. Very few people do. Claire slowly looked toward him. Then whoever is coming. She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Ethan already understood. This was not random corruption anymore. This was someone from his closest inner circle descending into the hidden infrastructure beneath his company at almost 4 a.m, trying to erase evidence personally. The upload bar hit 51%. Not enough. Not even close. Claire's breathing became uneven again while panic slowly clawed through her chest. Ethan noticed immediately. Hey. She looked up instinctively. Ethan stepped beside her again. Calm. Steady. Breathe. Claire hated how much that simple word affected her. She closed her eyes briefly and forced air slowly back into her lungs. Sorry. Do not apologize. His voice softened slightly. You are carrying this entire company on your shoulders tonight. Claire opened her eyes again slowly. Nobody had ever spoken to her like that before. Not professors. Not managers. Not the world. 57%. Another metallic door slammed somewhere underground. Closer. Claire immediately reopened the corridor security feed. This time the shadow appeared clearly for one brief second beneath the flashing emergency lights. A man in a dark suit moving quickly through the underground hallway. Ethan's face hardened instantly. Ryan. Claire's pulse jumped violently. He is coming here himself. Ethan stepped toward the operations room door while Claire desperately pushed the upload process faster. 62%. 64. Not enough. Then suddenly every monitor inside the room flashed bright red at once. Critical generator failure imminent. Backup shut down in 60 seconds. Claire stared at the countdown in horror. 1 minute. That was all they had left before the entire underground system went dark forever. 60 seconds before the underground servers shut down forever, Claire Bennett realized the only thing more dangerous than losing the evidence was the way Ethan Carter kept looking at her like she mattered. The countdown flashed violently across every monitor inside the operations room, while emergency lights bathed the underground level in deep red shadows. 59 seconds. 58. Claire's hands flew across the keyboard as fast as she could move them, trying desperately to force the upload faster through Ethan's satellite watch connection. 70%. Not enough. Not nearly enough. Somewhere beyond the steel walls of level B12, footsteps echoed closer through the underground corridor. Ryan Cole was coming. Ethan stood directly in front of the operations room entrance now, shoulders tense beneath his dark coat, while the red emergency lights flickered across his face. Claire glanced toward him briefly and felt something tighten painfully inside her chest again. He looked less like a billionaire in that moment, and more like a man standing between danger and someone he refused to abandon. How much longer? Ethan asked without taking his eyes off the door. Claire checked the upload bar. 3 minutes minimum. Ethan looked toward the flashing shutdown timer. 47 seconds left. Silence settled heavily between them. Claire already understood the math. The servers would die long before the upload finished, which meant the only remaining evidence connecting Victoria and Ryan to the transfer would vanish permanently. Claire. Ethan's voice lowered carefully. If the upload fails, she shook her head immediately. No, listen to me. I said no. Ethan turned toward her then. Claire rarely raised her voice. Life had taught her long ago that poor people survived by staying quiet. But tonight, every emotion she had buried for years suddenly sat too close to the surface. I am not letting them win, she whispered. Ethan stared at her for a long moment. Then something softened behind his eyes. Respect. Real respect. Not pity. Claire noticed the difference instantly. It terrified her more than anything else tonight. 39 seconds. The footsteps outside grew louder. Closer. Claire reopened the security feed and saw Ryan moving quickly through Corridor C toward their section of the underground level. Alone. No security guards. No witnesses. Why would he come down here himself? Claire asked nervously. Ethan's expression darkened. Because desperate people stop trusting everyone eventually. Claire swallowed hard and looked back toward the upload. 74%. Then suddenly an idea hit her so hard she physically froze. Ethan noticed immediately. What? Claire stared at the monitor while her mind raced rapidly through the system architecture. The relay cache. Ethan stepped closer. What does that mean? Claire looked up at him quickly. When I froze the transfer earlier, the system automatically created a mirrored transaction buffer. Ethan frowned slightly. In English. Claire pointed rapidly toward the server grid displayed on screen. The evidence still exists inside temporary memory storage even if the generators fail. Ethan's eyes sharpened instantly. Can we access it? Claire hesitated. Yes. But Claire looked toward the security countdown. The buffer sits inside the physical relay core 2 rooms over. Ethan understood immediately. The server room. The one place directly connected to the failing backup grid. 30 seconds. Claire stood abruptly. I can manually pull the data onto an isolated drive before the shutdown wipes everything. Ethan grabbed her wrist gently before she could move toward the door. The contact stopped both of them cold. Warm fingers against her skin. Steady. Protective. Claire's breath caught slightly. Ethan's expression changed too for the briefest second. Human. Too human. It is dangerous, he said quietly. Claire looked down at his hand, still holding her wrist. Then slowly back at him. So, is letting them destroy your company? Neither moved. The red emergency lights flickered across the room while alarms echoed softly around them. Claire suddenly became painfully aware of how close they stood. Ethan's hand loosened immediately, like he suddenly realized it too. He stepped back first. I am going with you. Claire shook her head quickly. No. If Ryan gets down here and finds the room empty, I am not letting you go alone. The certainty in his voice left no room for argument. Claire opened her mouth to protest again, then stopped, because some small dangerous part of her realized she did not want to go alone anymore either. 23 seconds. Claire grabbed a portable encrypted drive from the operations desk and shoved it into her hoodie pocket. Ethan immediately opened the operations room door and checked the hallway. Empty for now, but not for long. This way, Claire whispered. They moved quickly through the underground corridor while emergency lights pulsed overhead in slow red flashes. The massive server rooms around them hummed louder now, unstable beneath the failing backup power systems. Claire's sneakers slapped softly against the concrete floor while Ethan stayed close beside her. Too close. Protective without trying to be obvious about it. Claire noticed anyway. Dangerous man, she thought again. Dangerous because he cared. They reached the relay core room at the far end of the corridor, just as another warning siren echoed underground. 15 seconds. Claire immediately rushed toward the central terminal connected to the relay cache, while Ethan stayed near the doorway watching the corridor behind them. "Can you do it?" he asked quietly. Claire plugged the encrypted drive into the terminal with shaking hands. "I have to." The system screen flickered weakly beneath the unstable emergency lighting. Claire quickly navigated through the hidden transaction buffers while sweat slid down the side of her face. "Come on. Come on." There. The mirrored transfer logs appeared. Full authorization records. Offshore routing paths. Victoria's credentials. Ryan's access keys. Enough evidence to destroy both of them permanently. Claire immediately started the extraction process. 10 seconds. "Claire." Ethan's voice sharpened suddenly. She turned instinctively. Ryan Cole stood at the far end of the corridor beneath the red emergency lights, breathing hard from running. His expensive suit looked strangely out of place this deep underground. Claire's stomach dropped instantly. Ryan stared directly at the encrypted drive connected to the relay terminal, then at Ethan beside her. Everything became very quiet. "Mr. Carter," Ryan said carefully, forcing calm back into his voice. "You should not be down here." Ethan stepped slightly in front of Claire without even realizing he did it. "Funny," Ethan replied coldly. "I was about to say the same thing." 5 seconds. Claire glanced desperately toward the extraction progress. 92%. Ryan noticed the movement immediately. His calm expression cracked for the first time all night. Panic flashed behind his eyes. "Sir," Ryan said quickly, "you do not understand what is happening here." Ethan's voice turned dangerously soft. "Then explain it." Ryan looked directly at Claire. "Hatred. Real hatred. She manipulated the systems tonight." Claire felt fear twist through her chest, but kept her voice steady anyway. "You approved the transfer yourself." Ryan laughed once sharply. "And who exactly is going to believe that?" The words landed hard because all three of them knew the truth behind them. Billion-dollar executive versus homeless cleaning lady. Society usually chose sides very quickly. 3 seconds. The extraction bar crawled forward painfully. 96%. Ryan suddenly stepped toward them. Ethan moved instantly, blocking the corridor between Ryan and Claire completely. Claire stared at Ethan's back in stunned silence. He was really doing this. Really choosing her side. 98%. Ryan's voice lowered sharply now. "Ethan, think carefully before you destroy everything you built over a janitor." Ethan slowly turned toward him, and for the first time all night, Claire saw genuine fury in his eyes. "Do not call her that." Silence crashed through the corridor instantly. Even Ryan looked surprised. 99%. Then suddenly every light inside the underground level went black. Darkness swallowed the underground corridor so completely that for one terrifying second Claire Bennett could hear nothing except her own heartbeat and the faint sound of Ethan Carter breathing somewhere directly in front of her. Then emergency backup lights flickered weakly back on in deep crimson pulses, casting the server wing in shadows that felt almost unreal. Claire immediately looked toward the relay terminal. The extraction bar was gone. Her stomach dropped. "No," she whispered. Ryan Cole took another step forward through the flashing red light. "It is over now." Ethan did not move from in front of Claire. "Careful, Ryan." His voice stayed calm, but Claire could feel the tension radiating through him anyway. Ryan laughed softly, though there was panic beneath it now. "You still do not understand the situation." Claire's eyes darted toward the encrypted drive still connected to the relay terminal. No confirmation message. No upload completion. Everything depended on whether the transfer finished before the shutdown. Ethan slowly reached behind him without taking his eyes off Ryan. His hand found Claire's wrist briefly in the darkness. Steady. Grounding. Claire hated how much that tiny gesture affected her. "Claire," Ethan said quietly. "Did it save?" She swallowed hard. "I do not know." Ryan smiled instantly at that answer. "Then all you have is the word of a homeless janitor against 2 senior executives." The sentence hit Claire like a punch to the chest because it sounded exactly like the world she had lived in her entire adult life. Credentials mattered. Money mattered. Appearances mattered. People like her lost before they even spoke. Ryan stepped closer again. "Ethan, listen to me carefully. We can still contain this." Ethan's voice turned colder. "Contain what exactly?" Ryan spread his hands carefully, trying to regain control of the conversation. "The breach. The market implications. The scandal. Claire watched him closely now. Ryan was not afraid of prison. He was afraid of exposure, public humiliation, the destruction of reputation. Wealthy people feared falling farther than anyone else because they had farther to fall. You tried to steal from your own company, Ethan said quietly. Ryan shook his head immediately. No. Victoria negotiated a private acquisition deal through offshore restructuring. Claire stared at him in disbelief. That is not what the transfer logs showed. Ryan looked directly at her then. Ice cold. Nobody asked you. Ethan stepped forward instantly. I did. Silence crashed through the underground corridor again. Claire felt something dangerous shift inside her chest at the way Ethan kept defending her without hesitation. Ryan noticed it too. His expression darkened slightly. This is unbelievable, Ryan muttered. You are risking your company because some girl cleaning your floors told you a dramatic story. Claire flinched slightly at the words despite herself. Ethan noticed immediately. His face hardened. Enough. Ryan stared at him carefully now. You really trust her that much? Ethan answered without hesitation. More than I trust you. The words landed like steel inside the corridor. Claire's breath caught softly. Ryan looked genuinely stunned for the first time all night. Before anyone could speak again, the relay terminal suddenly flickered weakly back to life behind Claire. One small green notification blinked across the screen. Extraction complete. Claire's eyes widened instantly. Ethan saw it at the exact same moment. Ryan turned too late. Claire grabbed the encrypted drive from the terminal immediately and stepped backward beside Ethan. Relief crashed through her so suddenly she almost lost balance. They had it. The proof survived. Ryan's entire expression changed. Calm vanished completely now. Give me that drive. Ethan moved fully between them. No, Ryan's jaw tightened. You are making a mistake. Ethan's voice lowered dangerously. The mistake was underestimating the woman you try to frame. Claire felt her chest tighten painfully again. Nobody had ever defended her like this before. Nobody. Not professors who ignored her scholarship applications after she dropped out. Not landlords. Not employers. Not life. Ethan Carter, one of the richest men in America, stood in front of her like protecting her was the easiest decision in the world. It terrified her more than the shutdown alarms. Ryan suddenly laughed once without humor. Do you honestly think this ends well? Ethan stayed silent. Ryan pointed directly toward Claire. Look at her. Claire instinctively stiffened. A woman illegally sleeping inside your building. Accessing executive systems. No money. No power. No credibility. His eyes turned toward Ethan again. And tomorrow morning, every news outlet in America will believe she tried to rob your company. Claire's stomach twisted because he was right. Public opinion loved simple stories. Powerful executive victims. Desperate poor criminal. The headlines practically wrote themselves already. Ethan glanced briefly toward Claire. She expected uncertainty, doubt, calculation. Instead, he looked almost angry she would even imagine he might abandon her now. Then tomorrow morning, Ethan said calmly, they will hear the truth from me personally. Ryan stared at him in disbelief. You would publicly attach yourself to this? Ethan's expression never changed. I already did. Silence filled the corridor. Claire suddenly realized this stopped being only about money hours ago. Ethan was risking his reputation now. His board, investors, media, everything powerful people spent their lives protecting. And he was doing it for her. Somewhere deep inside Claire, a wall she spent years building started cracking dangerously. Ryan must have seen it too because his voice sharpened suddenly. Do not be naive, Ethan. Women like her survive by manipulating sympathy. Claire felt the words hit like acid because part of her feared people truly saw her that way. But Ethan did not even hesitate. No, he said quietly. Women like her survive because nobody helps them. Ryan fell silent instantly. Ethan stepped forward one slow step at a time now. Calm, controlled, terrifyingly certain. You walked past her every night inside this building without seeing her once. Another step. Meanwhile, she saved $500 million while the executives you trusted tried to destroy everything. Ryan's face darkened. You cannot prove intent. Claire slowly held up the encrypted drive in her trembling hand. Actually, Ryan's eyes locked onto the drive immediately. Fear. Real fear this time. Before anyone could move, Ethan's phone suddenly rang loudly through the underground corridor. Marcus. Ethan answered instantly. Talk to me. Marcus sounded breathless. Sir, federal agents are here. Claire's eyes widened. Ethan's expression sharpened instantly. Already. Anonymous tip called in financial fraud connected to Carter Dynamics 30 minutes ago. Ethan understood immediately. Victoria. She planned this entire thing carefully. If the transfer succeeded, the company collapsed while she escaped overseas. If anything failed, Claire became the public scapegoat before dawn. Ryan slowly backed away one step. Ethan noticed immediately. Do not. Ryan stopped moving. You think the FBI showing up helps you? Ryan asked sharply. By sunrise they will arrest the easiest target available. Claire felt fear crawl painfully through her chest again because she knew exactly who that target would be. Ethan turned toward her then. His expression softened slightly despite the chaos around them. Give me the drive. Claire hesitated only 1 second before placing the encrypted evidence into his hand. Ethan closed his fingers around it carefully, like it was the most valuable thing in the world. More valuable than money. More valuable than reputation. Truth. Suddenly, distant elevator alarms echoed through the underground level. The FBI had reached B12. Ryan's face slowly lost color. Ethan looked toward him one final time. You should have stopped when she gave you the chance. Ryan frowned slightly. What chance? Ethan glanced toward Claire beside him. The chance to become better than this. Claire's chest tightened unexpectedly at the words. Then heavy footsteps echoed through the underground hallway as federal agents entered the server wing beyond the red emergency lights. And for the first time all night, Ryan Cole finally looked afraid.